Boom. All right.
All right, here we go. Had to get the Instagram going. Welcome to the Field Vision Sports live stream, coming to you live from the 2025 NFL Draft. I use that term loosely, from the 2025 NFL Draft, but we are covering the 2025 NFL Draft. I'm Sasha Bouska, joined by Felix R. Johnson. Felix, how we feeling tonight, man?
I got my middle initial tonight. It's official. It's draft night. That's how you know it's serious. Felix's middle initial gets put into things.
Yeah, it gets crazy on draft night. I know you're a big draft connoisseur, and the draft basically officially started as we came on air here. So we're going to hear Cam Ward selected here in a few minutes.
How do you know it's going to be Cam? You don't know that. You don't know it's going to be Cam.
Are we going to? So that brings me into a good topic, Felix. And I know you're kind of a draft connoisseur and you follow all the drafts, and you could probably name me the top 4 picks from the last 15 drafts. Are we going to see any surprises in the top, let's say, 4 picks tonight? Because that's what everybody kind of assumes is locked in right now.
You know, I think it's kind of interesting taking a look at maybe not Tennessee, because I think Will Levis is just so bad. When you look at Field Vision Pro, the fun parts of it, or at least the easy fun parts of it, are to find who's so distant apart, whether for the good, who's so far up and to the right, but who's so down and to the left. And the first graph that you see for quarterbacks, Will Levis is way down far and to the left. And so I think the obvious decision for Tennessee is go ahead and take Cam Ward. Maybe they decide to get a little frisky and take Shedeur, but I think a quarterback is the choice. Whereas and then when you take a look at the next spot, I think Cleveland potentially not drafting there, not knowing exactly where Cleveland's priorities lie as a roster, as where Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, who are in Cleveland for the long haul, they just signed contract extensions. So it's going to be interesting to see if Cleveland drafts at 2, or if they trade down for some picks, or if they take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or whomever's there and whomever floats their boat at that point.
Yeah. Felix, you bring up a good point as the night goes along, and we'll be here for probably about an hour or so. We'll be using Field Vision Pro to paint some of our points about prospects, comps, team needs, that sort of thing. So be on the lookout for that. And you can see, as Felix alluded to, Will Levis was, of quarterbacks that played at least basically half the snaps last year, by far the worst in the league in terms of EPA and success rate, way down here in the bottom left-hand quadrant. But one interesting thing about this draft heading in as we await the first pick, every single team still has their pick. There hasn't been any trades. And I said the top 4 is presumed to be locked in, but that's provided that no trades happen. Do you see the Browns or the Giants or even the Patriots at 4? Do you see any trades happening in the next 30 to 45 minutes here?
Well, and it depends on how people feel about Shedeur. Like if the Giants decide early on him, because they have the number 3 overall pick, if they decide that, no, we're going to trade down from Shedeur, we're not going to take our quarterback this early, and maybe they even take him later on in the first round or something like that. And so we could see movement there. Like I mentioned just a second ago, Cleveland could move. Jacksonville is kind of an interesting spot at number 5 because their defense was abysmal last year, and they need all sorts of help just about everywhere because it's Jacksonville, and it's the same old story because it's Jacksonville, unfortunately. So I think that we haven't seen it yet, but I mean, the clock just started ticking.
Felix, I hate to interrupt you, but Roger Goodell just rode in on a bicycle.
Our old friend Raj, he rode in on a bike.
Yet another reason I couldn't be commissioner of the NFL.
Because you can't ride a bike? You don't know how to ride a bike?
Well, not very well. That's between you and I, though, not any of the couple hundred people following this stream right now.
I think they want to know now, because I do. I want to know for sure.
So you brought up, let's get back on track. But yes, I learned how to ride a bike at an older age, and I don't do it very often. You brought up Shedeur Sanders, and I think one of the things that, like, if you're the Browns and the Giants sitting at 2 and 3, there's really good prospects sitting there that are rated much more highly. And I think what they're thinking is, if Shedeur goes on a big slide, we could trade back into the back of the first and get our big time prospect, get our Travis Hunter, get our Abdul Carter, and get Shedeur Sanders later in the draft. Is that playing with fool's gold a little bit though?
It is, just because, I mean, you're kind of playing, we joke around about it. You and I in a previous life used to host a radio show, and our previous colleague, Mason Voth, we love the movie Draft Day, which I unironically watched last week. But that's what you're kind of hoping that happens. You can get Vontae Mack and your running back in the top 10, and Bo Callahan didn't have anybody go to his birthday party, so you definitely pass on him. So you're just kind of hoping and crossing your fingers, and Kevin Costner's not everybody's general manager.
You're getting all your first round picks back at the end of the movie.
And exactly, like you're kind of playing with fool's gold, kind of hoping for a fairy tale. And even like the idea of a lot of the idea of, we have a high pick, let's go ahead and just trade down. That idea is just kind of hard to play with, because we have these players and teams slotted at these points, but these teams have scouted these players and have their draft boards and where they're gonna pick players at. If you're picking at 19, you're probably going to pick at 19 for the most part. And so we're going to see some movement, maybe not early in the top of the draft, and we may be off of this live stream by the time it happens. But, I mean, it's the NFL. I bet you something's going to happen.
While we're on the topic, Draft Day, I have seen it, but I want your opinion. Good movie or not?
Being that I watched it last week, just to square it away in my head to answer this question for myself, horrendous. It's bad. It's really, really, but also, you know how I feel about this movie called The Country Bears. So like, it has that kind of quality to it where it's like, oh, this movie's bad, but also it's not that bad. I love Kevin Costner. Hell yeah, dude. Like, you're not that worried about it.
Kevin Costner's where it's at. So
exactly,
I mean, that in and of itself gave it some street cred. But yeah, I mean, the realisticness, if that's a word,
exactly,
of it was not great. Just a little teaser, by the way. I got my DraftKings loaded up, so we'll be taking a look at odds for certain picks as we go along. I believe Cam Ward is minus 20,000 for this first pick. So your little idea at the top that he might not go first, slightly misguided, I think.
Hey, you take the field, you're making some 1,000x on your money or whatever it may be.
I don't think they give you the option to take the field, though. You got to figure out a player. They don't give you the option to take the field. You've got to actually figure out a player.
Well, no, yeah, anybody in the field is what I meant. You can't just take the field. Right. I get that.
It'd be nice if you could, though. Cam Ward is going in this spot.
In a draft of like a Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck, when it was like, this guy, or even last year with Caleb.
And ours probably going to get us through like the first 5 or 6 picks. Mm-hmm. So I'll focus on this top part of the draft to start. If the Browns or the Giants do make a trade, get out of 2, get out of 3, is a team going up just to take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter and the pick stays the same? Yeah. Or are they going up? I mean, that's probably the most likely scenario, right?
Well, and that's kind of the hard part. And I'll kind of make this conversation a macro point. And we've talked a lot about it in terms of threat and havoc, but I'll kind of put it in terms of just kind of sack numbers with an edge rusher in the case of like Abdul Carr. Like, we're Chiefs fans. We love George Karlaftis. He had it, I think he had double-digit sacks this year for the first time in his career. I think just right at 10. Yeah. But he's going to be coming up for a contract next year. I'm going to ask you real quick, Sasha, do you think he's $100 million defensive end?
Yeah, probably not. And by the way, if someone drafts Abdul Carter and he turns into George Karlaftis, they're going to be disappointed.
Exactly.
The third pick.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But the NFL has about 35-ish guys that are George Karlaftis-ish and better, or around that range. And so I think that the edge rusher position, you saw, like, even in Philadelphia in the way they just won the Super Bowl, they didn't have this one primary star edge rusher. It was just kind of this band of misfits that just, not even misfits, they all fit into the Fangio scheme, but they're all just guys that work together, and they eliminated Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the Super Bowl of all places. And so I think that we're going to see more kind of this defensive line by committee type of range. And so it's going to be harder to see a team trade up for a player like Abdul Carter or even Travis Hunter. But with Travis Hunter, you have the idea of, like, maybe he's 2 players for you, or like a player and a half as your 5th receiver, or whatever the case may be.
I think that's what people are hoping for, is like, I get 2 blue chip prospects.
Mm-hmm.
My thought early on in the draft process was, like, he's the best corner, but the best corner normally wouldn't go number 2.
Yeah.
He's maybe the best receiver. The best receiver might go number 2 some years,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that he's really good at both is why he's so high.
Yeah.
But the question is, are you going to be able to play him in both places? And what's your opinion on that? Because that's what everyone's talking about.
Well, I think it depends on where he goes, but there's a reason why these teams are drafting at the top of the draft is because they don't have the proper coaching. Like if he was going to a Sean McVay and we were saying like he's going to be that 5th or maybe even 6th receiver in a high potent offense, like maybe even an Andy Reid or one of these offensive geniuses, just insert a name like that, and depending on maybe even like a Mike McDaniel, even though we have our opinions on how he runs his team and offense, but if he was going to one of those teams, it'd be like, okay, here we go. He might be going to Cleveland. He might be going to New York. He might be, and these are offensive coaches that might know how to fit him into a scheme, but the quarterbacks aren't good enough to fit him in and things for everything to work out. And he's going to have a tremendous load on him defensively, just off of how good he is. So it's going to have to be being translated that way. So it's going to be really hard to figure out what Travis Hunter is as a prospect. I mean, we love him we had him comped as Denzel Ward ahead of the draft. And we didn't come up with a wide receiver comp because it's like he's going to be a gadget guy at best. And I think that's a good thing.
If he was getting drafted as a wide receiver, I think he's way more than a gadget guy, but it's can he handle the load of playing full-time defense and then going over to the offensive side? I don't think he can do what he did at Colorado. And that's what you have to guard against. I mean, I think he probably is the best player in this draft and rightfully is going to get taken number 2 by the Browns. But you have to guard against thinking you're getting like 2 top 5 picks in one.
Exactly.
Because it's just, the likelihood of him being able to do that, it just seems pretty low.
Well, even if you put the shoe on the other foot, let's say he was primarily a wide receiver and wasn't as good as a corner, would you want like a 5th corner? Like he's probably not getting on the field. So like he still does have tremendous value as this 2-way player. He's not quite Shohei Ohtani in that he's a Cy Young player and a Silver Slugger and MVP or whatever, but he is still got value offensively that he can provide.
I love it when you talk baseball, Felix.
How
about Bobby Witt Jr.? He's
Big Shot Bob.
The Royals, not as good as they'd hoped so far this season, but I digress.
It's April.
I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this pick to come in because we know what it is, but there's 5 minutes left on the clock for Tennessee. I'm going to show a little chart while we're waiting for this Cam Ward pick of the Titans receivers from last year. You can see DeAndre Hopkins is there in a Chiefs uniform, but this is just the Titans receivers and their EPA and success rate. The kind of Bryce Oliver and Mason Kinsey are way up here. Obviously, I took it all the way down to 0 on the snaps, so they were little used guys. So you'd like to see the guys like Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Calvin Ridley, who were their main guys, higher up on this list. Is Cam Ward going to have the weapons that he needs to work with going number 1 to the Titans?
You know, that's always the worry when a quarterback's going high in a draft, just because, I mean, we have 7. I mean, we can go into this at a later date, but you and I have differing opinions on Trevor Lawrence. But I think a lot of that has to do with he just doesn't have guys around him. I mean, when he did have a quality, at least healthy team around him, they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. And so with a guy like Cam Ward, and even in a class like this, maybe he's not the guy to carry you to a bunch of wins. He's not going to have a Jaden Daniels type season, or even like an Andrew Luck if we want to draw it back even further. So I think it's going to be interesting to take a look at. But you look at Tennessee and then you remember, oh yeah, the AFC South is the AFC South, and Houston won it, and they were kind of abysmal offensively at times, even with CJ Stroud at quarterback. The Jags, we just talked about the Jags. They're in that division. They haven't figured it out yet with Trevor Lawrence. And then I'm forgetting the 4th team in the AFC South. Whomever they are, they're irrelevant, and I can't even remember who they are.
Did you already say the Texans? I was looking at pro stuff.
I mentioned the Texans first.
Texans, Jags, Colts, and Titans.
Colts. There you go. And the pick is in, as you can hear the chime
go down. That chime. There was some story going around about how that chime came about.
And it didn't, like, they didn't play until like the 6th pick of whatever draft they debuted in, like 2006 or something like that.
Such a nice sound.
It's very satisfying. It's one of those.
All right, here comes Goodell. We'll pause for the moment.
Yes. Final prediction, Sasha. Is it Cam Ward?
Yeah, well, it already went, and he said Cameron Ward instead of Cam. He went full on pronunciation.
You think that Miss Ward, Cam's mom, was just like, "Hey, Roger, would you mind saying his given name? I named him Cameron. Everybody's calling him Cam. I get it. It's easier,
Sure.
but
what do you make of the ascent of Cameron Ward? If we're going there, like 0-star recruit, Incarnate Word, Washington State, Miami. They said if he would have come out of Washington State last year, he probably would have been like a second or third rounder.
Yeah.
And now he's the number 1 overall pick. I guess the question is like, is he really the number 1 overall pick, or is that just the draft he's in?
Yeah. And that's kind of, I'm glad you bring that point up, because like there was a lot of the conversation, like if the Vikings would have brought back Sam Darnold, like if JJ McCarthy was in this class, would he have been the top overall pick? I mean, he was the 5th out of 6 quarterbacks drafted last year. So it is kind of interesting when you bring that point up. Like I do agree with you where it's like, where is the talent kind of mixed up in there? But he is just kind of that winner. We had him comp to Baker Mayfield this week, and so I think that that's a pretty decent. What's up?
I got to cut you off.
Okay, that's fine.
I like what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense.
No, I'm hoping that you got big news.
Guess who's on the clock now?
Ooh. I'll wait.
No, I was waiting for you to guess. Jacksonville is on the clock. Schefter came on the TV screen. I didn't hear exactly what the trade entailed. Well, Jacksonville just traded up to number 2.
There goes Travis, because I mean they need some serious help in their secondary, and then I mean why not? Like we were just talking about, he's got that value as a potential maybe 4th or 5th receiver for Trevor Lawrence to target. So I mean they need the helps in the secondary, because they had one of the worst secondaries in the league last year.
Do you see him as a good compliment to Brian Thomas Jr.?
Sure. Everyone
is
play.
Every 12th play. You just really don't think that Travis Hunter is going to play much offense?
I don't think he's just got so much value defensively, and that's where I'm assuming Jacksonville's going to take him here.
Let's take a look at Trevor Lawrence's receiver chart for the year.
But I think he's just going to have so much value for Jacksonville specifically to play in the secondary, because that's where they need him. Now they're going to use him gadget wise just because he has the ability to do so. And so I wouldn't be shocked if he has a couple of touchdowns by the end of the year. And Sports Center has him on their top 10 plays after a 17-yard gain. It's like, oh, his greatest thing since sliced bread. But primarily he's a corner.
Yeah. You see Trevor Lawrence primarily, Brian Thomas had a 19% target share last year, and he was their most successful receiver as well. Christian Kirk's right in here. Evan Ingram is gone now. So he'll be an interesting addition to that offense. But they weren't short of weapons really last year. It was just a matter of distribution and the offensive line and getting the run game going. I know they need help in the secondary, but the Jacksonville offense at times looked pedestrian at best last year.
Right. And I mean, we were just talking about whether or not Cleveland was going to trade down and gather some picks. And it looks like they will, because, and we mentioned it, or at least I did early on, that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, they signed contract extensions this offseason. And that was after the season that Cleveland had. So they're committed to their brain trust. They're committed to at least the vision of where things are going, and they've got to find a way out of this Deshaun Watson situation. But this is kind of giving them a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel by getting them some more, a few more picks. And I haven't seen the compensation just yet.
It's on the screen right now. Jaguars received 2nd and a 4th and 6th. The Browns received the 5th, 2nd and 4th, and a 2026 first. Not bad. They moved down 3 spots. And they get a 2nd and a 1st for next year. And they basically swapped a 6th for a 2nd plus a 1st next year. So it's a pretty good deal for the Browns.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is just a team. Obviously, it's kind of weird because, again, we're Chiefs fans. We saw them play them in the playoffs not that long, or it feels like not that long ago. It's been like 5 or 6 years at this point, but they had one of the better rosters in the league at that point, and then it seemed like different things fell apart. Baker goes away, the Odell situation happens, and then Myles Garrett requests the trade, and then he's still there. So I mean, it's just been it's Cleveland, so you expect these things, but a similar thing can be said about Jacksonville.
And to your point about the cornerback situation in Jacksonville, they ranked 31 out of 32 in our unit rankings last year, as you can see here on Field Vision Pro. So it's something they need, and they'll probably use them on offense a little bit, but defensively it'll be more important. The pick is in, Felix. So
your boy intern P thinks that they should take Ashton Genty.
Oh man, that sounds like
at
something
number
you
2.
would say.
I mean, the last running back to go number 2. Do you know
they're going to take Genty? Just stay at 5. The first 4 picks were slotted.
That's not the point. Trade up and get Vontae Mack all the time. It was written on the piece of paper.
Cleveland might get Genty now. Who's Cleveland going to take at 5 now, assuming the top 4 go how we planned?
God. If they could snag Carter still at 5, like, I mean, again, the 4 are probably still going. I don't think, because
they can't snag Carter.
No, because New York's not taking him because they just signed Brian Burns to that extension.
You don't think New York's going to take Abdul Carter?
I wouldn't think so.
You better get on DraftKings then, because he's the heavy favorite. But I do have a question.
They just signed Brian Burns, didn't they? And after the trade from, I mean, it may not matter in just best player available, but
yeah, the
I don't think I'm
odds
crazy
on
in saying
DraftKings
that.
only goes to the 5th pick now. They don't let you do it right before, so probably wisely. I do have a question, Felix. What's the delay between when it says the pick is in on the screen and the sound goes off?
Roger's just hanging out. He's milking it. Roger knows what he's doing. This is Roger's Super Bowl. He doesn't care about the actual Super Bowl. This is his Super Bowl.
He's going right now. I do have a question for you about Roger Goodell after this pick, if you don't mind entertaining me a little bit.
For sure. Our old friend Roger.
Oh, they're doing the Walter Payton Man of the Year thing. That's a lot of fun.
And you know what he's doing between when the pick is in and the sound? He's watching our live stream. He's hanging out.
He's gotta be.
Oh wait, the pick is in. Oh my bad.
We told him. Yeah.
Oh wait, the pick is in. I wonder what Roger's doing right now. He's like, oh crap.
So if the Giants aren't, like, in your opinion, potentially not going Abdul Carter, like, where are you looking for them? Or do you think they trade out as well? Because I think that's the most logical thing for them. But the question is do people covet Abdul Carter enough to get, like, Travis Hunter just got the Browns a whole? I don't think Abdul Carter gets that.
I don't think New York drafts here because of that, because Travis is going to go here to Jacksonville. Abdul Carter is going to spike in some value because, like, I mean, maybe New York doesn't draft him. They probably could or would, whatever. There might be somebody watching right now who has a better opinion on what the Giants should do. But if they don't take Abdul Carter, why not trade the pick, trade down, and maybe get your quarterback? Should they have some interest in Shador? And they might be taking him here, so it's interesting. Then depends on what they're going to do.
Will somebody, you think, hop up in front of the Saints at 9 to the Panthers pick and take Shador there, or do you think it's like somebody hops up in front of the Steelers, or the Steelers take him at 21?
I don't think the Saints are letting anybody take Shador other than if they get the chance to. I mean, by the time
the Saints will take him at 9 if he gets there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, unless somebody trades ahead of them or like New York takes them, like we were just talking about, I don't think anybody trades or Shador makes it out of the top 10. And we were talking about it earlier this week, and I think it was in a meeting. But if Shador makes it out of the top 10, I think he drops to the second round. Like, I think it could be one of those silly nights.
Travis Hunter just went, by the way. Just a little news update. I think if you're watching our live stream, there's a good chance you've got the draft on as well. Not just relying on us, but I don't think Shador falls out of the first round, only because if it gets late in the first round, the Chiefs or the Eagles or somebody at the back, Bills, Commanders, will trade back to the second, and somebody will jump into the back of the first to get, and probably the same for Jackson Dart. They'll probably both go at the very back of the first to get that 5th-year option. And one thing I was seeing talked about a lot is like the front of the second round is kind of a coveted spot this year because a lot of people think like there's like 45-ish guys, 5 to 45 is all really similar, and just be in the front of the second round. And so if you can move up, like if you're drafting at the very end and you can get an additional second round pick, it may make sense.
For sure. And then that's why, like, I think Cleveland moving down from 2, like, they could do the same thing at the top of the second round. Like we were just talking, like you're saying here, where there is some value. There might be like around 45 players. And if you're drafting again at 34, 35, or whatever the case may be, why not trade down and gather more picks?
Second round pick, which is the 37th pick.
Yeah,
they have a lot of ammo now because now they have the 34th and 37th pick to go with the 5th pick. And
well, and even they can trade back up into the first round if they decide like Shadour's at 30. I'm fortune telling here in about 4.5 hours or whatever the case may be. But that could be a reality we live in.
It takes so long, Felix.
Hey,
it takes
I'm telling we plan on being here for about an hour. We might get through 5 or 6 picks.
Yeah, 10 minutes times 5 picks is
again. Roger is watching our live stream in between the pick is in and the sound.
It started a little late. Cam Ward or the Titans didn't go on the clock till about 7:10. They took the full 10 minutes. Why does the team taking the first pick always take the full 10 minutes? When they've already said they're not. That
pisses me off more than anything because you had the whole offseason. What have you been doing? Like, what have you been doing this entire time? And then you use the 10 minutes. I think you're just being drama queens. I think that's what it is. It's like, hey, everybody, look at us. We still have the first overall pick. Hey, that's what it is. They're booing us.
Yeah, I know. Let's take a quick look at the Giants' needs while we're here. On defense, they were the 16th ranked defensive tackle unit. They were DN3, so you're right about that. They were the 4th ranked linebacker unit, 26th ranked cornerback unit. Maybe they should have moved up to 2. And the 23rd ranked safety unit. And then on the offensive side, quarterback, whatever. We don't know what's going on with New York and quarterback. They're 20th ranked running back unit, 12th ranked wide receiver unit, 23rd tight end, and 29th on the O line. So Giants pick is in. So let's see where they go, and we'll see.
This might be the last time we mention Shadour's name unless somebody trades. He might get either taken here or the Saints take him when just inside the top 10 or whatever.
The Giants take Shadour. That's going to surprise a lot of people. I have not heard much chatter about that lately.
Imagine Shadour in New York. Will you be annoyed by Shadour in New York? Because it'll be a big thing.
No, I won't be. Will you be annoyed by it?
No, I'll probably enjoy it because I'm annoyed.
Are you just as a general rule, you were a big Colorado guy, right?
I'm a big controversy guy.
You know what's crazy about Shadour Sanders? His dad has literally always been his coach.
Yeah.
Like when he was a kid, his dad coached all his teams, and then he got to college, and now he was his coach at Jackson State, then his coach at Colorado. Yeah. Like, is he going to be able to play for someone other than his dad?
Well, that's the thing is like Deion might get a job next year. Like, I mean, he almost got the Cowboys job this year. It was like a real conversation. And then Brian Schottenheimer stole it from underneath all of our noses. But
so do you think the teams are just waiting to see if they draft Shadour, and then after the first year, that guy, like if it were the Giants, Brian Dable gets the axe and in comes Deion Sanders?
I mean, we're joking about it. We're joking about it, but yeah, I'm saying like it's entirely possible. It's just a thing that could happen.
Anything could happen. Anything is possible.
Jason Tatum said that, right?
Pick is in. Goodell's walking to the podium. I'll give you some play-by-play. He's looking really regal.
They took Abdul Carter. How about it? I was wrong. I was wrong.
I got to break it to you, Felix. You're about the only one who was wrong about that. Like every single mock I looked at in the last 3
Oh,
weeks has had Abdul
but
Carter going.
there was decent logic behind it because they had the third best defensive end group in football last year. And so if they don't want to draft a defensive end, they can trade out of that spot and get players.
There's actually a website called NFLmockdraftdatabase.com, which I know you would love that. I would love that because it's like the bracket matrix thing and it's just the whole thing. I like databases. It's got all the mock drafts. Like Abdul Carter was 92% to the Giants at 3.
No,
only surpassed by Travis Hunter at 95% at 2. And he did go 2, just not to the same team. And then Cam Ward 99% at 1.
I'm just saying, if that 8% would have been right, it would have been like, oh, but then Felix would have been sitting here like, all right, there you go. What now?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So the Giants are stacked at edge, I guess it looks like now.
What did I used to say, Sasha? To make a big splash, you got to go out on the ledge.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we had Abdul Carter in our player comparisons as a Micah Parsons type player. Is that just because he went to Penn State, or do you see it there?
Well, it's because he went to Penn State and he wore the same number, and he is the exact same player, and he's LeVar Arrington. And yeah, no, I mean, it is kind of like easy just to say he's Micah Parsons, but Micah Parsons is kind of, he's the hybrid. And like, what do you do when you see a hybrid? He becomes the archetype. So
the one thing, like Micah Parsons is an amazing pass rusher. The one thing the Cowboys have done a little bit is try to get a little bit too cute with him.
Yeah.
Like doing different things, dropping him in coverage and stuff. And it's like, yeah, he can do it, but like, why? He can just sack the quarterback a lot.
Exactly.
I think the Giants will make that, like, Abdul Carter is just going to rush the passer, right?
You'd think so. I mean, again, they have the third best defensive end group. And so it depends on where they need him the most. And again, I think the interesting part about this particular Giants roster, or excuse me, this upcoming Giants season and Abdul Carter's drafting now is like, this staff is probably getting fired if he doesn't work. Like, and like if they don't work as a franchise, and they're probably gonna have to draft a quarterback, or I mean, they got Russell Wilson in free agency. So if they don't work this year, there's going to be changes in New York, and it's going to start with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, their general manager, who got embarrassed in front of all of us on Hard Knocks last year. So it's kind of obvious to me whether or not, or excuse me, they have to work this year. And so Abdul Carter, you're bolstering something that was already working for you last year. Let's see if it'll work.
Is the Giants' next pick, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to get Shadur Sanders because, like, but is the Giants' next pick a quarterback?
That's interesting. Like you said, the top of the second round has some value. So though they have a pick there, do they trade back into the first round? Do they get Shadur if he drops lower? Do they get Jackson Dart? And the fifth-year option on both of those guys if they want to trade back into the first round for that. It's a harder question to ask, but they obviously need it if they think Russell Wilson is going to get them to – if, like, again, this is a franchise that has to work next year. Is Russell Wilson that guy that gets you there? I don't know.
Winston is.
I unreasonably agree with that sarcastic statement.
Okay, so like actually, here's a better question, and I was gonna ask you if we could get the Jameis Winston experience, but I don't think we're gonna get it unless like the season falls apart. But if the Giants do get their hands on Shadur Sanders somehow, even though they didn't take him with the third pick, is he playing right away, or are they gonna dabble around with Russell Wilson for a while, realize it doesn't work, and then play him halfway through the season?
I think they dabble around with Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Do you remember how much did they give him?
I can't remember. I don't remember the exact number, but I mean, that's kind of the hard part with it, when you sign a guy like Russell Wilson, which I've always hated this conversation when it came to, and it happened a lot more with like Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick. But like, if your backup is a distraction, Russell Wilson kind of bridges into that territory for me a little bit, where if he were to be your backup, it's like your locker room's a little uneasy. There's gonna be stories about it. So
I wasn't listening, so I don't know who all you
half.
mentioned, but like Tim Tebow, Colin Kaepernick, Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the 3 you mentioned exactly?
That's 2 of them, and then you added on Cam Newton.
Yeah, Cam Newton was never like he should never be a backup quarterback for anyone, and mainly because he was just too good at one point.
Yeah,
and there is a such thing as like you were too good at one point to now be a backup.
And the same thing is true for Russell Wilson for sure, where he was just too good. He's a Super Bowl champion quarterback, almost 2-time if they score the touchdown on the goal line, hand it off to beast mode back to back, and who knows at that point. So
the deal for Wilson though was 1 year, $10.5 million with 21 million up to 21 million with incentives. Still pretty. It's not. It's big for a backup deal, but it's not a starter deal either. So
I mean, because he's going to start half the season. He's gonna start 6, 7, 8 games or whatever.
Probably just get cut if they bench him.
I mean, sure. It's the Giants. They'll win 4.5 games this year, and it'll be like, ooh, that defense might be something next year, 2026.
Watch out. We got 3 edge rushers.
Brian Dable, one more go around. So I mean, like maybe. Like, I mean, potentially, but like it's the Giants, and the only reason like some people pay attention to them is because they're the Giants in New York. But at the same time, if they do get Shedeur, that kind of explodes their problem of people are just looking at us for all of the wrong reasons. So,
by the way,
that's another reason why they don't draft him at 3. I think
you mentioned Brian Burns a couple of times. He was our DN7 in Havoc ratings last year. 14th on pass rush, 5th on run defense. And you can see he lined up on both sides pretty evenly. I'm going to pull up Thibodeau while we're here too. He did not, if my memory serves, have nearly as productive a season. He was DN 43, and you can see most of his lines here are a lot more red, so he was not creating as much havoc from any spot on the field. I think what this is a sign of is they're going to move on from him. He's not going to get a deal long-term, second deal sort of.
Yeah, they're not going to spend money on Burns, a high draft pick on him, and another
when
high
you get
draft
younger,
pick
you draft for the future. Like you get younger at that spot, and you don't have to worry about spending a bunch of money at defensive end moving forward.
Yeah, so. It just kind of like begs the question of like you were already good at that position. The one position, like the way out of the darkness, is the quarterback position. Now you don't know who. Like you don't know if you're going to get.
It's also like a clear statement. It's a clear statement that nobody thinks Shedeur Sanders is a top 10 even quarterback.
Yeah, no, for sure.
If he's not, like, just don't do it.
No, I agree with you, but even like in that scenario, and we talk about how hard trading down can be. Trade down, like I mean, explore that scenario of like if we're gonna just bolster a position we're already good at, explore every opportunity to make your entire team better.
I think I'm sure they explored it. They obviously wanted more than what they could get. So,
the only reason I bring up all these things is because I know I'm smarter than Joe Shane. And that's
just took Will Johnson, by the way. It's official.
Well, there you go.
Wait.
I'm a little shocked he's still
Did I just say his name wrong?
Will Johnson? Or Will Campbell?
Yeah, it's Will Campbell. Sorry.
You said Will Johnson.
Looking at
I'm
Felix Johnson.
The corner out of Michigan. You say Will Campbell, it's the tackle out of LSU.
Yeah, I was looking at Felix Johnson and
okay. Screen, it's my fault.
It is your fault. But Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU with short arms. But
I'm black like Will Johnson, but I'm an offensive lineman like Will Campbell. So it's like it was a whole thing for you.
You're the perfect combination of those two guys.
Like, dude, you are just at least my arms. I probably have longer arms than Will Campbell.
Yeah, well, it's fine.
Low bar. I sent a text message to our Field Vision group chat just before we jumped on here, but Will Campbell wore pinstripes to make his arms look longer. Still didn't work.
Smart.
It's not because it didn't work. If anything, it makes it look worse.
Now 5 was always where the draft was going to get interesting.
Sure, yeah.
It's just with a different team than we thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to be the Jags. Now it's the Browns. And so that throws a whole nother can of worms into who could go 5.
I think we just talked about it here. It's my doppelganger, or cousin, or whatever you want to call it, Will Johnson here. Because a lot of mocks showed the Browns going with Travis Hunter. If they're going to get a defensive back, might as well get another one here with Will Johnson if he fits into your scheme and what you want to do. But again, Cleveland in this spot, like you said, the draft is now interesting. At 5, some other teams' plans might have changed. Somebody's panicking. You might want to take advantage. We know that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have some sort of plan. That was we were in Indianapolis for the combine. That was a heavy presence of people that I saw, and you're not going to be able to draft from Cleveland, at least from their organization. At least it looked like. Saw a lot of Browns logos on a lot of lapels and sweatshirts and whatnot while we were in Indianapolis. But I think that to me, that kind of signified we want to look at as many players as we can. So we're going to bring as many people as we can to the combine. Again, I don't know how things work out. I'm not that smart. But they might be trading down like they just did from 2 to 5. Who knows if they go from 5 to 8 or something like that.
Pick is in. Does not appear that they win anywhere. All right. I don't think they're going to go corner here.
You don't? Ted McMillan.
It's possible. I think it's him or Genty. I think they're going offense.
I don't know if they go. Do you think Genty goes this high?
I mean, people were saying him to the Jags potentially. It's the same spot.
Yeah, you're right.
If Genty doesn't go on this pick, do you think the Raiders will take him next pick?
That feels like a Raiders thing to do. I mean, if the late great Al Davis was still around, maybe. But now that Tom Brady's taking care of business, they might get
the Browns. You mentioned Will Levis at the bottom left of a graph earlier. This is the Browns last year in team overall EPA versus success rate. Now, epically bad quarterback play, I'll say that, but they've got a lot of needs
on Jameis Winston's name. All right, dude. You put some respect on Jameis Winston's name. He's phenomenal.
32nd in EPA and success rate. You know, there is 32 teams in the NFL, Felix. Just so you know. Let's take a look at their receivers last year. You can see there's a lot of filters on Field Vision Pro. I can go down here, get rid of all these teams, and just pick the Browns. A little live demo while we're here, in case anyone was interested. Apply those filters. Slide this minimum bar back. These were the Browns receivers last year. Jerry Jeudy, actually, he had the best year of his career, and then they had Cedric Tillman, and way down here, they had Michael Woods II. They had a lot of guys take low snap percentages. You have to go all the way down to 0% to get more guys on the list. Jamari Thrash.
I have never heard of these guys.
There's just not a lot of dudes there. So
I have never heard of some of these guys. And I watch a lot of football. You know that, Sasha. I'm locked into every game on Sunday and Thursdays and Mondays and Red Zone and all that good stuff. I have no idea who Jamari Thrash is.
Browns receivers. Now, here's their running backs. Jerome Ford. Let's take a look at where he ran the ball and how he ran the ball last year, just in case they take Genty. He was running a lot in the middle.
The pick is in, big dog. They're announcing it.
And he ran a lot around the
I'm gonna break in here. They took Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
Okay. That's a good compliment to Myles Garrett, right?
That's what I'm gonna. Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle, with the Vikings. We had him comped with him. And we had him going number 5. I mean, obviously, we didn't have the trade going down with Cleveland and Jacksonville, but we had Mason Graham going 5.
Their defensive tackle ratings last year were 24th in the league. So
our graphic designer Jay Miz just texted us. He agrees with us. The Raiders are getting Genty, which I mean, it sounds like them.
Yeah, it does. The question is, does Tom Brady value a great running back?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Tom Brady never had one.
I mean, well, he always had a run game at least. The Patriots were always they had the most boring brand of football for the longest time. They looked like the Chiefs of the last couple of years, and the most identical part was that they were winning and competing for Super Bowls and AFC Championship games, and so I can see them going and having a not a boring approach, but a more run-based approach, because that's where the NFL is now. What team just won the Super Bowl? It was the Philadelphia Eagles on the back of Saquon Barkley, even though in the specific game in the 3.5, 4 hours of the Super Bowl, he may not have had the most effective game, but in the 19 games leading up to that, who was it? It was Saquon Barkley. He could have been the MVP of the league, had the greatest season of running backs ever had. Maybe Ashton Jeanty gets to be a beneficiary of that.
He's definitely, I think, already in this whole process been a beneficiary of that.
Derrick Henry also contributing to that. Like, I mean, Ashton Jeanty might make a couple $1 million based off of the seasons those two guys had right before and I'm not saying that he wouldn't have been a first-round pick, maybe, but he might have been like the 25th overall pick as opposed to he might go with his next pick.
Felix, we're probably going to wrap here after this next pick. So just a couple of questions for you. Do you have a favorite draft day story? I know you memorize drafts on Wikipedia mostly, but anything that
think of a good, I remember releasing my very first mock draft when I was in middle school, 2014 draft. Would you happen to remember who went number 1 that year?
By the way, you just gave away the fact that you're in middle school in 2014. I was like 90 years old by then. Number 1 in 2014.
Yeah.
Well, Eric Fisher went 1 in 2013.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess it was a quarterback the next year.
It wasn't. No. I'll give you that. It was not a quarterback. Position. Defensive end.
Oh, yeah. Mario Williams or Jadeveon Clowney.
There you go.
Mario Williams was like a long time ago to Houston, and then Jadeveon Clowney that next year. Yeah.
Why my heart set on Johnny Manziel going to the Texans? I was like, Texas A&M, Texans, boom.
That would have been a great pick.
But so it didn't work out that way, and Johnny Manziel's career didn't work out.
Somebody in our group chat, that's how old you are. So
I'm 23. I'll be like I'm ancient at the same time. Like, Sasha, you've known me since I was a teenager, basically.
Yeah, I know. Regretfully.
All right.
Yeah, I saw something earlier today about that 2013 draft. There was like Lane Johnson, I think, went 4th, and he was like the only good player in the top 10.
It was one was Eric Fisher. Luke
Jokel had a decent career. He went 2.
Then Luke Jokel didn't really play for long. Deion Jordan. Then Lane Johnson. The first quarterback was E.J. Manuel at 16.
Right. Who had a better career, Eric Fisher or Luke Jokel?
Eric Fisher.
All right.
He's like a 2 or 3 time All-Pro. No, he's an All-Pro.
Okay.
Multiple times over. I don't think Luke Jokel made it to his second contract.
Yeah, that's fair. What year this is really going to test your mettle. Titans quarterback. From Washington.
Jake Locker?
Yeah, what year did he go? Number
2011.
2011.
That was 2011. And who was the Mizzou guy that went that same year?
Blaine Gabbert. All right, picks in, Felix. Blaine Gabbert's still hanging around.
They took Jeanty.
They took Jeanty? There you go.
How about it, ladies and gentlemen? They took Ashton Jeanty.
Let's take a quick look at the Raiders running backs last year and where they liked to run. Jeanty, man. How many yards does he get next year?
7. I don't know. No, I'm joking.
700. Over or under 700? It's
over.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, about 50 yards a game, that's over 1,000 for sure. I think he'll get that. I mean, he's a running back. It's pretty typical to see a running back have a good college career and a good early NFL career, and then like the carries start tacking on, and you've run for 2,000 yards for the last 3 years of your college career and 1,500 yards for the first 3 years of your NFL career. So
yeah, he had a lot of college carries as well, especially
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a smaller back. He's 5'9", and he's stout. He's like 215, but it's the running back position. It's the argument that you had last offseason you might have in the future in the next coming years, despite what we just said, Saquon and Derrick Henry and a bunch of different running backs having great years.
The Raiders went with the trio of Zamir White, Alexander Madison, and Sincere McCormick last year, and Madison was right in the middle, kind of like not surprising. He's just an average dude. And Zamir White did not have a great season. But if you look at Madison and like his gap profile, it was very even across the board. So Genty can run at all levels. Receiving chart, Madison was all close to the line of scrimmage. That's going to be the same for Genty. He's not going to be like a downfield receiver. And they were running a lot of inside zone and man 53% of the time, at least with Madison. And that was their most successful as well.
And they clearly missed Josh Jacobs, who had a really good year with the Packers. I mean, it was very impressive to see every running back. I mean, we talked about, again, in a previous life, we used to host a radio show together, and we talked about how, like, all of these running backs seem to be complaining almost of, like, we're not getting paid. We'll go out there and earn it, and they did. They just about all of them who signed with a new team had a really good year, including Josh Jacobs leaving the Raiders, and now Ashton Genty gets to take over.
And all those teams had success too. So then it's like, okay, we need a good running back to have success, and it could even be a free agent one who has a few years on the little tread on the tires. And so if a free agent can do that, imagine what a rookie without the tread on their tires can do. Because running back has forever been the position where it's plug and play, and you're kind of in your prime from the moment you step on the field.
Right.
Like your prime is like your first 5 years instead of like years 3 through 7.
First 3 years. I mean, how about this? I'm gonna throw a name at you and see if you even remember it. It's not even from that long ago.
Screen, by the way.
It's not even from that long ago. Doug Martin. Who did he even play for, Sasha?
The something hamster. He played for the Buccaneers.
There you go.
What'd they call him? The muscle hamster or something?
Something like that, from Boise State. And he had like 3 years where he was the best running back, incredible in fantasy, and then it was like, what happened to Doug Martin? So, I mean, like, it happens all the time.
The biggest, like, star in the night was Chris Johnson. He had a 2,000-yard season.
CJ2K, yeah.
And he had a 2,000-yard season and, like, then was around for a little bit longer and then was gone.
I'll bring two more up, and I know that we were going to wrap things up, but whatever. It doesn't
Give
matter.
me those two, and then we'll wrap it.
Jay Ajayi.
He was a real flash. He was like a quarter of a season.
Well, because he had like 3 games where he went over 200 yards.
Yeah, he went crazy for the Dolphins for a few games.
And then the other one, it just slipped my mind, pulling Jay Ajayi from nowhere.
Jay Ajayi was good enough. But let's see. If we can't end our draft coverage on a Jay Ajayi reference, what are we doing? So anyways, that's your top 6 picks. You got Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, and Ashton Genty. Kind of like the same people we expected to get picked. The order changed a little bit with the Browns and the Jags, but not a lot of excitement there. But Felix, it was fun, man.
Just real quick, being that we're Kansas City Chiefs fans, we're not drafting until 31. Who do you want to see? Or at least what position do you want to see the Chiefs draft?
I don't care. They're going to take another tackle probably, or a wide receiver.
Dude, I'll be so mad. They suck at drafting tackles. Quit drafting tackles. All of them suck. Darian Kennard, Kingsley Suamataia, Lucas Niang. All of them suck. All of them. Stop drafting tackles and just sign and trade for them. That's all I got to say. Stop
Maybe
it.
they'll trade the pick for like an established player so they don't screw it up.
There's no Orlando Brown Jr. out there, though. There isn't one.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Drafting tackles, Brett. Veach. Dude.
I think they trade out. So somebody can take a quarterback there. Take a bunch of second-rounders.
You know who I want? Luther Burden. I want Luther Burden.
Yeah. Then we have 2 Rashee Rices. Or Deebo Samuel. Rashee Rice is very close.
At least we'll have a Rashee Rice that'll play for the first 8 games in next season.
Oh, man. I hope he doesn't get suspended that long.
It's going to be 6 or 8. You saw what happened. Let's get out of here.
We digress. That was fun, guys. Thanks for joining in on the live stream, everyone who did. Exciting stuff. NFL draft. Hope springs eternal for all the crappy teams that just drafted picks in the top 6. The teams that can't draft are drafting in the 20s and 30s, and they're going to be not as excited about their picks, but probably more excited come next season. We'll see y'all next time.